Hey, it's John and Mike, Brew-Dudes.com, and this week, we have gone to the comments, the questions, the emails. We do get a lot of people trying to contact us, and sometimes we say to ourselves, well, maybe we should just dedicate a video to answering some questions, taking some comments, using them as discussion points, and make it into a video, because we do this kind of thing every single week. And, you know, when people go on vacation and then maybe, you know, come down with an illness or something, it kind of slows down the brew schedule, if you know what I'm saying. But anyway, thanks for coming along on this trip. If you like this kind of video, subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up. All right, Michael, you've collected all these points. Let's have at it.
Some things. So something I've seen come up in a few comments, especially because we do all this hop stuff. Sort of sub to that. Several people ask, do we have a typical targeted water profile for beers in general, but you can relate it to your hoppy style or whatever? Yep. I have my opinion. I'll tell you what I do, but what do you do? Do you have anything you do standard, or are you trying to focus on a given profile, given recipe?
Yeah, so I think it depends on where I'm getting my water from. These days, I am buying water from the store. I think sometimes if I'm in a pinch, I will filter my tap water. But I think in the years that we've been doing this channel, we've talked about how our water it's not bad. It just doesn't make for great beer, good beer brewing, but not great beer brewing. So let's get back to the question. If I'm using spring water, then I'm probably adding some gypsum, just a little bit, just accentuate the hop profile. And again, I would say a little bit. Am I actually doing calculations on the 1 gallon batches? No, because I know that if I put in a gram or two of gypsum, during the boil, I know that's going to change the accentuation of the hops, and it'll be fine. I think that for other beer styles, certainly I try to dial in my salt, and then we probably will talk about that in the recipe. We will talk about that when we're tasting the beers, because it's an important factor. Because if I'm going to do a New England IPA, I want to make sure my water chemistry is in line with what I think, in my experience, has made quality versions of that style. And then on the malty side, I'm probably dialing in salts, but on a different type of ratio. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
I tend to, so John and I sort of do the same thing. I'm brewing with really soft water that I get from the store, spring water usually, but it is very soft. I tend to target about 100 ppm of calcium. And then if it's hoppy beer or malty beer, that's where I'm making the choice between gypsum, the sulfate, and calcium chloride for chloride. I do tend to use a little bit of both all the time. It's just that I'm making the ratio. I do tend to like to put in 20 ppms or so of sodium chloride, a little table salt. I'm still experimenting with that, but it just sort of makes me feel good. I used to intentionally put some Epsom salt, mag sulfate, but I didn't really notice it was doing much, and I didn't really want to add more, so that's what I do. So I always target about 100 ppm of calcium and then go from there.
Yep, I think when we did those water chemistry tasting, when you just would doctor the water with just the salts, we noticed that there was a threshold at which the ppms made a big difference. There was the kind of point of no return, and you don't want to brew with that. And then there was the point of, I don't know if I can detect, you have to add enough for it to have an effect.
Yep. Here's a question. Do you acidify your Sparge water?
I don't, but
no.
I haven't really. I've seen recipes that call for that, but I've never done that.
So here's my take on it. You want your pH to be right in the mash, so I would focus on that. So if you're the type of brewer that fills the mash tun with a certain amount of water and treats that water, then you do your salts, you do your acidification, whatever it is that's going to target your mash pH. And for the most part, as long as you're not over sparging, certainly if you're batch sparging, I don't know too many people who are fly sparging anymore. So this issue is sort of not an issue. You don't really, I've never really pulled tannins due to a pH issue in batch sparging. I've never really heard anybody with that problem. I tend to, when I'm doing a full batch, I've got 10 to 12 gallons of water in my kettle, and I'm treating all that at once. So in theory, I guess I am acidifying the sparge water.
Sure.
But in general, when I was hardcore batch sparging and I only had one vessel, no, I just acid for the mash, and the sparge water was the sparge water.
Right on.
Here's a comment, just a comment for you that you'll probably really like, is that one dude said that whenever I search for hop profile information on a new hop, we always come up in the search.
Yay, good for us.
That's all this guy
But
positioning.
sure, we also have done a very large number of hop smash beers and profiles, etc., right? And I think that knowing that, hey, if you put the hop name in the title of your video, gee, that's
don't give the secrets away.
It's not a secret. I'm just trying to make sure that people can find, what we're putting out there. But anyway, at some point in my life, what I'd love to do on our blog is to put into the top nav the Smash video library. It would just be Smash videos. That would be like the top navigation link. And I'd probably take out competitions because when I started the blog, I was like, oh, we'll talk about competitions. And then I was like, there's so many better resources than us. And so I think I'm just linking to some, I think I'm linking to the AHA or something like that. It doesn't matter. I'm going to replace that with a library of all the different hop analyses or just the videos we've done on smash beer tastings and stuff. And it'll be kind of like the hop name, some pertinent information of what's out there on the internet, and our take, and thanks to the advancements in AI, I think that our takes, I can extract that pretty easily and make this into something that can be probably done in a few weeks rather than months. Because I was going to I was planning to watch each video, maybe speed them up and but still be able to take notes and say oh, Mike said X, Y, Z, and I said ABC, and we put that up and have that be a thing. But I think at some point,
I'd like that reference.
I know. Well, I think that I'd be happy to put it out there because I'm gee, I don't know. Last time I checked that playlist, there was 50 plus videos in there. It's probably a lot larger now. Yeah. Anyway, that's nice. Thank you. More to come, and then, after we're long gone, you'll still have it. Yeah, those guys back in the early aughts, they talked about Chinook hops, and they thought that tasted like biting into a grapefruit with no pulp. Think about that. All right, next one.
Then they turned their site over to Skynet, and that was it.
And that was it.
Getting back to the mash a little bit, someone asked, do we ever add ascorbic acid emitted by sulfites to our mash? The reason for this is to control or help out with oxidation.
Sure.
And this was actually pegged to one of the more recent lightish colored lager videos that we did. And I think maybe I had a comment in there about color. No, so the short story is I've never tried it. I've thought about it, looked at it. I've actually thought about playing with Brutan B. I don't know if you've ever heard of Brutan B, but that's another one of those things that's supposed to help with oxidation too, and help with flow and stuff. But anyway, no, I've never tried it, but maybe someday we will try it.
Yeah. Wasn't there some thought of olive oil or was?
Well, so that was a yeast thing for cell walls.
Yeah.
That's been largely debunked,
Okay. Pass along that.
This probably pertains a little bit more to me. How do you control temp in those SS brew buckets or stainless steel kegs when I ferment in those?
Yeah.
Pros. Key opinion leaders in our hobby talk a lot about you got to have a probe in the fermenter, right?
Yeah.
And so I've always had good luck putting the probe on the side of the vessel with some insulation, a couple old washcloths or rags, and I've always felt that that's pretty close. Horseshoes and hand grenades. That it's fine. If I felt like a fermentation quality tasted that it fermented too hot or it was sluggish, then I'd adjust the temperature. I'm not really adjusting temperature to say, I fermented this at 68. I'm using the 68 as a reference point for next time, do I want to go higher or do I want to go lower? And I'm sort of ignoring the real number with that method. So I do have the ability to put a thermal well down inside, but I never noticed it making a huge difference between those two methods. It's only 5 gallons. The thermal shift is pretty quick.
Yeah, gotcha.
Something for you.
Oh, no.
Someone asked, and I know we've talked about it in the videos, but just because we're talking about it tonight, 1 gallon smash beers, what do you ferment in?
Oh, I ferment in, you don't have one of those, but I got like a gallon.
That's why I don't do the smash beers. I don't have one.
A glass gallon jug. And
is it one gallon?
Is 1 gallon.
It has like the embossed 1 gallon on the side?
And actually I use that is my fill level, because I know that during fermentation it's going to foam up.
Do you know, is that 1 gallon or is it 1 gallon right up to the neck?
I think it's up to the neck,
Okay.
honestly.
Okay.
I think it's up to the neck. So
behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
We're doing 0.83
Yeah,
gallons.
well, I mean, again, it's for one pour, for one video. Dude, if I could do a 12-ounce beer, I would, but like, we
bottles.
could split it.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about one bottle. You'd get half, I'd get half, and that'd be it.
As long as I get the first half.
Yeah, and I get the sludge that's in the bottom of it. So it's a clear glass gallon. I do have a whole bunch of I think I've collected over the years wino wine. Can I say that? Is that, I don't think that's correct anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, like the big jug wines, I have like those old
Jug wine.
jugs,
Yeah.
and those vary in sizes, but you can get from a homebrew store, because that's where I got them, a clear glass, 1 gallon jug, and use that for small batches.
It's basically a growler, right? But a 1 gallon size growler.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever fermented in a growler before. I like the clear glass because I can see what's going on, and especially if it's getting to a point where it's going to overflow, because I use a rubber stopper and an airlock on top of that. I don't do blow off tubes or anything like that. I do have the drops you can put in, and it keeps the foam from going too crazy from the fermentation. But yeah, that's all I do, and I think that it's been a good vessel. Very easy to clean, very easy to sanitize right before the brew, or at least the boil session's over, and then transfer over to it. So yeah, I guess the real truth is it's a 1 gallon batch, but it's not really a full gallon, because I need some headspace to ferment.
This is sort of a question, a blast from the past, but someone asked, will a chiller, specifically an immersion chiller, prevent the ability to do a whirlpool, specifically a sedimentation whirlpool, for trying to get that trub cone, cone, for depending on what your system is, if you're not pouring out of a kettle or whatever, and you want to sort of limit the amount of hops and junk that's going to come out of the kettle, you can get a whirlpool going with a spoon or pump. Will a chiller sitting in there affect that? We actually have a video a while back where I played with the dip tube being in one of my kegels and not, just to see what that would do. I've always noticed with that immersion chiller, whether I'm using a spoon or a pump, you get a little bit of coning, but it tends to just still be a dispersed, it's not as tight. It's not as tight.
Right.
So clearly, in a pot with no connections in it, that's how you'd get the best. There's a little bit of disturbance in the flow that affects how well it cones, especially as it starts to finally slow down. It gets off to a good start, but so if you're whirlpool, we're talking about whirlpooling for sedimentation, not whirlpooling for hops. You can whirlpool for hop effects with whatever you want in there, right? So that's fine, as long as it's moving and the hops are freely swimming around. That's great. But when it comes time to sediment, you want to probably finish chilling, pull that out, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And you're good to go.
I hear you. Yeah, I saw that comment too. I think someone actually wrote about it, but I took it in the meaning of whirlpooling for hop flavor, hop aroma.
Okay.
And
well,
I
you
thought
got both.
right. I
Yeah.
think like the traditional thought. We've talked about this,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
terms like whirlpooling. What does it mean to you?
Yeah.
And just the term of like just that phase of your brew day to get the wort down, not below boiling temperatures, but like above chilled or fermentation temperatures. So you're extracting more of the aromatics from the hops.
Yeah.
I really don't think about like bringing more,
Yeah, the amount
Do
of
it.
trub carryover into
Yeah.
a fermenter, I think certain people, certain places have sort of shown that doesn't seem to impact the quality of the beer any.
and you can work on clarity
Yep.
post fermentation. I feel like I've added gelatin and other clarifiers to beers, ones that I feel like the style calls for, something that's
Yeah.
crystal clear,
Yep.
and feel like I've done it so successfully that I don't really care too much about what I'm bringing into the fermenter because I know I
Yeah.
can like clarify things later on in the process.
Okay. Last couple. Do you have any special cold crash procedures / tips for cold crashing? Do you
get
do
a
much
fridge.
cold crashing with your equipment?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I do. I think,
So definitely you gotta have a fridge to cold crash.
yeah, I think that's
How do you avoid suckback? I think that's the big concern.
I see. Yeah, I think that you can probably like limit what's in your airlock if that's your concern. Because like after that, you can probably lower the level that's in there. Because at that point, you're not really worried about like oxygen getting in and stuff. I haven't really had a problem with
You
suckback.
ain't too much like suckback issues.
Yeah, haven't. But yeah, I mean, procedures. I really feel like if I'm transferring to some secondary vessel, that I love cold crashing. It makes like transfer so much easier,
I agree.
and you get a sense of like, okay, I'm leaving a lot more in primary, less in the secondary, and without a cold crash for like a couple of days, like you can probably do it as quickly as like a day,
Yep.
and see tremendous
So
results.
do you go from fermentation
Yep,
is done
yep,
to in the fridge and cold crash?
that's what I do.
And you set it to 34 degrees or something, whatever your cold is.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Versus there's some trains of thought out there to cold crash only like 2 degrees per day. It tends to limit shock on the yeast that maybe they'll expunge some other flavors into the
Really?
beer. Yeah.
No.
I can see that would be a real thing, but I can't say that I've noticed it in your beers or my beers. So
Okay.
whatever. For me, cold crashing, lately I've been doing a lot of fermentation in kegs anyway. So when fermentation is done, I'm just popping the blow-off tube off of the gas in post. I use, right?
Sure.
And now it's sealed, so there's no chance of suck back for me with that.
Nice.
That works really great. And then I think the same deal. I just monitored that airlock pretty closely if I was doing like an airlocked thing to watch out for suckback. Somebody asked,
But cold crash is like cold crash. Like don't slow it down. Like yes,
cold
sure.
ramp, cold
cold ramp.
cold drift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
So someone asked, remember my really old aged
Yeah,
sour
that thing.
bar that we
Yeah.
turned? We did a little
Finally.
fruiting with. Someone asked, what are you going to do with the second half of the carboy? Well, if you notice, the carboy's gone.
What happened?
One thing that we noticed that was really fascinating, and we never really talked about it on camera, if you go back and look in videos, you'll be able to see it yourself, is that after I drew half of that out of there,
Change color. Huh?
I didn't make any effort to like purge it, whatever, because I didn't really have major plans for the second half. But within a day or two, that beer got dark. It oxidized and got very dark in color very quickly, way quicker than I thought it would. And the original beer was very light in color, super clear.
Sure.
This thing got a little cloudy, very dark, almost turned into like a brown ale in color. So I think it has something to do with its age, its pH, right? And it had plenty of oxygen there because I just siphoned out of it when I did it. I never purged CO2. So What's happened with the second half of that carboy? That beer lives in the grass out there somewhere. So that's what happened with that.
It's feeding your tomato plants.
And the very last thing is just another comment that you'll like. Just leave you with this. Every time that we engage with the Jar of Destiny, we get several comments that say, praise the jar.
Praise the jar.
Praise the jar.
Where's the
The jar's on vacation. The jar's on vacation.
The jar is sitting in its palace.
The jar
waiting for
the
its
jar makes
quarterly
itself present
yeah.
every quarter.
Its quarterly presentation to us. If they only knew. It's just underneath the bar. Well, praise the jar.
Praise the jar.
The jar has been quite the journey. It is a challenge, and I think at the last, and sadly probably the last homebrew conference, I was talking to somebody about it, and I said, "Yeah, we don't have any idea what we're going to pull out of the jar. Like, we turn the camera on, and we are pulling styles out of that jar, and whatever we get, yeah, I know we say we have some veto power over it, but for the most part, we're doing the style. So whatever it comes, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to brew." Yeah, so keep going with the jar. When do we do it? We have to get
We've got a month and a half for the yes. We have to get on
this
those.
summer went by way too fast.
Way fast.
Okay, but we picked like the beginning of July. All right. It's all coming together now. We'll have our beers quite soon towards the end of September.
Respect the jar.
Respect, yes, as well. Praise and respect the jar. That's why we put the jar underneath there. That's where it needs to be. All right, I don't know what's real and what's fake anymore. But if you like this video, thanks for submitting all the questions and stuff, and give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel because, even if it's not home brewing, we're just two dudes hoping to hang out with you, and if you've lasted this long, kudos to you. Anyway, for John and Mike, brew-dudes.com, brew on.
Cheers.